Hello, Drake Alex Music Optimistic here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Almost all of these videos are pretty much just my opinion, me breaking down different thoughts that I have about music, and nothing else. And in all of these videos, the one through line is that it is purely my opinion. However, with this video, I decided, why don't I do something that is purely objective? So I went through album of the year, and I wrote down every single top 10 album of each year based on user score. And I decided to rank every year against each other. So for these, I pretty much went through the highest ranked albums by users, manually went through and filtered them out by which albums had at least 500 reviews or more, and went through pretty much every year. The only years that I didn't include were 1964 and earlier, because for some reason, in those years, there will be like 1 or 2 albums that have over 500 reviews, hit that threshold, but pretty much that's it. The rest of the years were pretty much full of albums that had like maybe 10, 20 reviews. Because wow, people today don't just sit around reviewing random fucking soul records no one's heard of. Took the 10 highest from each year, averaged them out, and ranked them in this list, and that is what this video is. I'm pretty much just gonna get right into it, because there is a lot of years from 2023, because I'm not including 2024 in this list. I'll go over 2024's rankings as of right now at the end of this, and see where that would be. But by the time this video comes out, that may be a different list, but when I started working on this, that was a different list. Alright, so bottom of the list, you have 1987 with an 82.8. As you can see, there's a couple classics here, like Prince, Sign of the Times, Michael Jackson's Bad. But the rest of these are pretty much lost to time, other than like U2's Joshua Tree, but I don't know who goes around listening to that. There's a few records here which people like, Flying Beagle, songs about fucking. In these earlier years, there will be a couple classics holding the thing up, like this one has an 87 at the top. Meanwhile, the bottom will be infested by nothing. 1966 with an 83 even. This one has an asterisk, as some years do. There's not that many with an asterisk, but some years do have an asterisk. This one is the Kinks' Face to Face. The asterisk is pretty much just, there were not 10 records in the year that had a minimum score of 500. But this was the closest one that did, and will likely hit it next time. When I originally started scripting this video forever ago, there were several years with asterisks, but this one is not as much of an issue. All right, next up, 1985 with an 83.2. You have these 10 records. I'm not going to be going in depth about literally every year, otherwise we'll be here all day. 1981 with an 83.6. I don't recognize literally any records here. I know of The Cure, but I haven't listened to that album. So just next up, 1978 with an 83.8. You have this Music for 18 Musicians, which I know is a very acclaimed record. I haven't listened to it though. You have Brian Eno's Ambient 1. That's a classic. Next up, 1988 with an 83.8. You got Public Enemy. You got Sonic Youth. You got Metallica. Some stuff here. 1980 with an 83.8 as well. There are several years which have ties in them. But hey, that's just gonna happen when there's this many years. But yeah, you got classics like Remain in Light, Closer, a random David Bowie record. And then this low on the list, you have 2023 with an 84.2. Personally, I think 2023 was like the weakest year of the decade so far, aside from 2020. But it still had some fantastic records. And as you can see, there are some fantastic records on here, like Scaring the Hose, Javelin, Lahai, and that Caroline Polachek record, which wasn't on my year list last year, but definitely would be if I were to make the list now. In fact, the deluxe version that came out this year, fucking fantastic. Please go listen to it. The new extra tracks added on, better than half the record also. 1986 with an 84.5. Master of Puppets, Queen is Dead, 2 classics on here, and then the rest of those are beloved by many, but not as influential or well-known. 2009, 84.5. This is one of the few records of the 2000s. This is one of the few years of the 2000s where I recognize almost nothing here. On my previous draft of this video, Fever Ray's self-titled was on this list, on this year, and I love that record, but it was beaten off by other things since then, so unfortunately, Fever Ray is no longer here. In 1983 with an 84.6, you have Talking Heads, Brian Eno again, New Order, which I just found out recently is Joy Division. It's the same band, pretty much, so that's something. 1968 with an 84.8, you got Jimi Hendrix, you got The Beatles, you got Aretha Franklin. In the 60s, when I was going through, Aretha Franklin, the Beatles, and like, I think Jimi Hendrix, it's mainly like Aretha Franklin and the Beatles were pretty much half of the list in those years. It was kind of funny, and especially going back even further, in like the 50s, is pretty much just like Miles Davis and like Charles Mingus and whatever. It's funny that earlier in the decades is pretty much just a couple artists, but that's to be expected when the world isn't as interconnected as it is now. Next up, 1965 with an 85 even. We're starting to work our way into the years where there's more classics and more albums that are higher ranked. Like this one has two 90s. John Coltrane, Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited. Also, the Charlie Brown Christmas soundtrack is the third highest ranking of the year. Maybe it's a slapper. I haven't watched it. Next up, 1974 with an 85.1. You have King Crimson. You got Neil Young. You got some stuff on here. 2020, what I believe to be the weakest year of the decade so far with an 85.2. I'm currently working through this year to do a 2020 top 15 best albums of the year list. Pretty much my album of the year for this year, not even on the list, but it's such a strong 9 that like I might as well do the list now because I know it's going to be number 1, but I haven't gone through even half of my list for the year yet, so it's going to be a bit. You got Ichiko Aoba, fantastic record. Phoebe Bridgers, fantastic. Fetch the Bolt Cutters, fantastic. Jessie Ware, fantastic. Circles, pretty dang good. Literally, I don't disagree with any of the albums on this list. 10 of the best of the year so far. 1979, you got an 85.5. You got The Clash, that classic record. You got Off the Wall, one of Michael Jackson's better collection of songs. I haven't listened to a full Jackson record, but out of the Jackson records that I've heard, like, sections from, this is the strongest. Unknown Pleasures, Fear of Music, The Wall. Like I said, we're getting into the years where there's going to be a whole lot more classics and a whole lot more recognizability, because there's so many years of music that is pretty much just at the bottom where there's going to be almost nothing recognizable. Next up, you got another tie, 1984 with an 85.5 as well. Purple Rain, Ride the Lightning, Diamond Life, Treasure, The Smiths self-titled, classics. 1990 with an 85.6. You got Cocteau Twins. You got Depeche Mode Violator, that record that Fantano gave a 10 and then it instantly became popular. Yep, it is a year. You got next up, the first of the 2010s, 2017 with an 85.6. You got that devastating Mount Erie record, Lord's Melodrama. You got Makabe, Big Crit, Flower Boy, fantastic record. Damn, fantastic record. Brockhampton. I've never actually listened to Brockhampton. By the time I became aware of them, it was already way too late, and they were pretty much on the way out, and then literally, like, last year or the year before, they put out their last record as a collective, and now everyone's moving on to, like, solo records. So it's like, I'm a little late to the party. Why even bother at this point? 2019 with an 85.9. You got Igor, fantastic record. Although I do prefer Flower Boy. Titanic Rising, fantastic record. Norman fucking Rockwell, Magdalene, Caligula, All My Heroes Are Cornball, Schlagenheim, Gray Area. 2019 is an underrated year. I think it's actually like one of the best years we've had in music, and like a long time. Like, there was a new album I added to my 10, like my list of 10s recently, and that makes it like the 5th 10 from like 2019. Yeah, I added Charlie XCX's Charlie record to my list of 10. Other 10s from the year 2019 for me are FKA Twigs, Magdalene, and yeah, Peggy's All My Heroes Are Cornballs. I could have sworn it was more, but yeah, 3 10s from that year. 2019 is just so fucking underrated. Like, it's an incredible year for music. All right, next up, 1989 with an 86. You got The Cure, Disintegration, fantastic, beautiful record. De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. A lot of De La Soul stuff on the website has been gaining a lot of traction, as a lot of it got put on streaming fairly recently. So they're being flooded with a lot of reviews and stuff. So like, previous drafts that I've had didn't have like any De La Soul records on the list, but this most recent one has a couple. Yeah, pretty good year. You have 1989 with an 86 as well. The Cure. Hold on, I fucking copied and pasted the same thing twice. You got 2002 with an 86 even as well. You got the Queens. You got Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf. Pretty notable record. Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. Wait, I could have sworn those were like completely different eras for some reason. Like, the Songs for the Deaf was way older than Turn on the Bright Lights, but okay. Didn't even realize that. You got the Sugar Rose record down here, parenthesis, which their latest record, Ada or Ate, I don't know how to say it. It is beautiful, fantastic. Definitely gonna make my albums of the decade list when I put that out. 2018, 86 Even. This is many people's favorite year for rap music and just music in general as of recently. Because yeah, it was a pretty great year. You got records like Taboo, Astro World, Kids See Ghost, and Kids See Ghost and Taboo are on this list. You also got Car Seat Headrest redoing their Twin Fantasy record from like 2011. You got Daytona, that's another rap album. I've always felt that 2018 was a little overrated in terms of its hip hop influence, because there are better years, but 2018 was a pretty good year overall. You also have 21 Pilots making their best album of that year. My last video was about 21 Pilots, so like, I can mention them. All right, next up, 1975 with an 86.1. Pink Floyd, Blood on the Tracks, Physical Graffiti, Patti Smith with their proto-punk influential masterpiece Horses. You got Bruce Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac self-titled, not their first self-titled, their more recognizable self-titled. 2014, also with an 86.1, you got Swans. To Be Kind, the record Fantano gave a 10, and yeah, it's pretty much deserving. I think it's pretty fantastic. If you don't like long music, it won't be for you. In fact, my favorite song for the record is the 30-minute track, because it's such like an opus and just it feels so full, holistic, and great. It's so good. Pinata, Black Messiah, Faces, LP1. You got a lot of modern classics this year. So yeah, where can we go up from here? 2021. Another recent year. We're starting to move towards more recent years, I feel. You got LP, the offline version, which is a fantastic record, even if it is like a bit long. Sometimes I might be introvert. By the time I get to Phoenix, devastating. Literally is pretty much depression, the album. Sinner Get Ready, Knocked Loose's brilliant EP, which foreshadowed their masterful record from this year. You got the online version of LP. I thought about whether or not I should actually put that on the list, considering the offline version was right above it. It'd be like putting a deluxe and a standard edition, I guess, but I thought it'd be different because they're two different versions. Next up, 2007 with an 86.2. You got Radiohead's In Rainbows, currently the second highest ranked album of all time on Album of the Year, I think. Second or third. I think it recently passed to where Good Kid, Mad City is now the second, with To Pimp a Butterfly being the first. So Kendrick is literally in the first top two spots, and then Radiohead in the third and fourth. It's a little funny. 1970 with an 86.3. Going back to the older years, Bitches Brew, Paranoid, All Things Must Pass, that giant, lengthy Beatles solo member album. A couple classics, but I feel like this is one of the years where the couple classics at the top very much carry the albums near the bottom, because while they may be notable in their own right, they're not quite as renowned or well beloved as these other albums. Next up, in 1982, Michael Jackson's Thriller, The Dreaming, Kate Bush, Plastic Surgery Disasters by Dead Kennedys, another Cure record, another Prince record. 1967, 86.5. Here we are in the 60s, where pretty much every year is dominated by the Beatles, Nina Simone, and Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, they're two, well, no, not Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin. I'm sorry. But both of them are on this list. I forgot. 1976, also with an 86.5. Stevie Wonder, Songs of the Key of Life, David Bowie, Station to Station, two of their best records, respectively. And then records that I'm not completely familiar with. Next up, 2008, with an 86.5 as well. You have a Nice Life by Death Consciousness, and then the Mario Galaxy soundtrack, which finally worked its way to be in the 500 review threshold. It's personally one of my favorite soundtracks. Probably my personal absolute favorite soundtrack. It's so good. I wish that Nintendo would allow their soundtracks to be on Spotify, but hey, you're allowed to do whatever you want with your IP, even if other people don't like it. That's why piracy exists. 2010 with an 86.5 as well. Kanye's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, a record that I wanted to listen to, but by the time I got around to getting to it, Kanye decided to become a full-on Nazi, so I haven't listened to any new records since Donda. Well, that's not a new... You know what I'm saying. I wasn't familiar with this catalog, and then now there's no point to go through it. Got Gorillaz, Plastic Beach. I haven't listened to this record, but I'm sure I wouldn't like it because I'm not a big Gorillaz fan. 2022, 86.5 is how many fucking years or have this score? Yeah, 2022, aside from this current year that we're in right now, is the strongest. You had so many classics in this year. Ants from Up There, The Forever Story, Hellfire, I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, Mr. Morale, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, Cheat Codes, a bunch of other records that didn't even make this, like Billy Woods' Ethiops, the Sefu record, which I reviewed very positively in that year. Yeah, there was a lot of great things in 2022, especially for hip hop. Like, this is the best year for hip hop in a long time. So many fucking great records came out that year. 1991 with an 86.6, finally moving out of that four-way tie. You got Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, Nirvana's Nevermind, Loveless by My Melody Valentine, Spiderland Slint, Talk Talk Laughingstock. A lot of, like, literally half of it is classics, and then the other half are well-revered albums, but just not as popular or as beloved as those ones. Which really, how can you be as popular as Low End Theory, Nevermind, or Loveless? Like, it's very hard for any year. Next up, another fucking tie. The next year, 1992, with an 86.6. Sade Love Deluxe, Rage Against the Machine self-titled. Aphex Twins' Ambient Collection, their first debut record, I believe. The classic Alice in Chains records, Nine Inch Nails' Big Broken EP. 2013, with an 86.6, another fucking tie. Minecraft Volume Beta, which is a little funny that this soundtrack is one of the highest ranking soundtracks of all time. I mean, this isn't even Volume Alpha. So yeah, this one and the Alpha are both two of the highest ranking albums of all time. It's a little funny. Another Queens of the Stone Age record, Ichiko Aoba's Zero, Random Access Memories, Sunbather, one of my favorite records. Next up, 1993, 86.8. We're almost at an 87 out of 100, which, by the way, it is really hard to get a year's rank pretty high, like a year's score, because pretty much every record has to be bangers. And as we get higher in the list, you will probably start to recognize nearly every record here. But for most of these, it is just a couple, or maybe half the list at this point is going to be bangers. Like this year, you got Wu-Tang Clan, you got In Utero, Midnight Marauders, Slovaki, Siamese Dream, and then a bunch of other good albums, but not as well revered albums. 2004 with an 86.8 as well. Mad Villain, Mad Villainy, College Dropout, Food, MF Doom twice in there, Arcade Fire's Funeral, My Chemical Romance, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, and a bunch of other stuff as well. 2006 with an 87 even, here we are, with Joanna Newsom's Yeast, Jay Dilla's Donuts, The Black Parade, beautiful, horrifying, fun, not even horrifying. It's just such a dark record. 2011, 87.1. This is where Minecraft Volume Alpha is, sorry. Ex-Military, Helplessness Blues, Giles Corey, Bon Iver's self-titled, House of Balloons. See, we're getting into the years where nearly every album will be recognizable to some extent. All right, 2003, the year I was born, 87.3, Mount Eerie, Sweet Trip Velocity, Design Comfort. This is an album that I haven't listened to, but I really love the cover, and I've known about the cover for a while, so I'm probably going to listen to it at some point. But my main priority is getting through my 2021 list right now. So it'll probably be another 30 years before I get to it. Who knows? 1977, you have 87.4. Animals, Low, Marquee Moon, Heroes, Stranger, Exodus, Rumors, Aja, Zombie, Pink Flag. Like 8 out of 10 of these records are albums that are pretty well acclaimed, pretty famous records. We're pretty much broaching the point where you're gonna recognize probably every album here. So yeah. Next up, 1996 with an 87.6. Fishman's Long Season. There was a year like later on that would have been higher up on my earlier draft that had the Fishman's live album, the big notorious one. But album of the year removed live albums from this thing, so I pretty much redid my list so it could be verified or searched, or you can go on album of the year yourself and find these records. Yeah, so pretty much that doesn't exist on this list anymore. Swans, Soundtrack for the Blind, DJ Shadow Introducing, Outkast ATLiens, Jay-Z Reasonable Doubt, De La Soul Stakes is High, Tool, Enema. Like I said, a lot of records here you're going to recognize. 2005, 87.6, Sufjan Stevens, Illinois, Late Registration, From Mars to Sirius by Gojira, The Mars Volta, Francis the Mute, Nujabes, Opeth, Common, Gorillaz, Doris, Bright Eyes, bunch of people. 1973, 87.7. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Stevie Wonder, Inner Visions. Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On. Record this year, I'm not too familiar with a lot of the albums in this year, but hey, I'm younger, so that's probably why. I'm sure if I listened back to older music, I would love these records. I'm just not as familiar with them as maybe some other people in my audience would be. 1972, you got in 87.8, David Bowie, his big, massive, everyone loved that album. Nick Drake, Pink Moon. Yes, Closer to the Edge, Stevie Wonder, Talking Book. Again, another year where I'm not too familiar with the stuff, but hey, these have to be very beloved albums if they're being ranked and reviewed so positively. 1995 with an 87.8. Pretty stacked list here. 1969 with an 88 even. Abbey Road, Court of the Crimson King, Karma, In a Silent Way, Hot Rats, Hot Buttered Soul. Again, we're moving up another whole number. So expect more albums to be noticeable. But I will not be able to talk about literally everything as I've already been recording for half an hour. So I will be recording for like an hour if I talk about every single album. 1999 with an 88 even, also with another stacked year. You got 2012 with an 88.1. Good Kid, Mad City, currently the second highest rated album of all time. Lil Ugly Mane, Swans, Death Grips, Fiona Apple, Frank Ocean with Channel Orange. A lot of good modern classics here. 2015 with an 88.3, even higher. Currently with the highest rated album of all time, To Pimp a Butterfly, with a 96 out of 100. Like, that is insane. Toby Fox's Undertale soundtrack, Earl Sweatshirt's Solace, Carrie and Lowell, Powers That Be, Rodeo, Epic, blah, blah, blah. I also had the idea to exclude soundtracks altogether, because for the most part, when you review a soundtrack, you're not really reviewing the soundtrack, you're reviewing how good of an accompaniment it is to a game or a film. However, I feel like to do that would very much alienate a lot of people who come across this video, and also, that's the entire point of the soundtrack. I know nobody is going on Spotify and listening to the full 3-hour runtime of the soundtrack. That's just not happening. Maybe there's a few people who do that, but I don't think there is for the most part. For the most part, people, when reviewing soundtracks, review it in relation to the game. I pretty much gave my score for the Mario Galaxy soundtrack in relation to the game, as I haven't sat down and listened to it in official capacity because, wow, it doesn't exist in official capacity. And I think that's fine. People can do whatever. I just don't think they should be on like the same tier as albums, because if we're going to remove live albums from this sort of ranking, I think soundtracks should also be removed because they're not albums. 2016 with an 88.3 as well. Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition, David Bowie's Backstar. Are you fucking kidding me? Frank Ocean, Blonde, Death Grips, Bottomless Pit, bunch of classics on here. That's actually my favorite Death Grips record. I may have put the Powers That Be in my decade ranking list, but hey, it's pretty much either one. 1971 with an 88.4. What's Going On? Blue, Led Zeppelin, blah, 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 blah. Old people music. 1998 with an 88.7. You have Lauryn Hill, that classic record. Outkast, that record. Massive Attack, Neutral Milk Hotel, albums. Cool. 1994 with an 88.9. We're literally bridging on 89. Like, we're so close to a year being 90. Spoiler though, no year has a 90. That's just not happening. I mean, that would literally require like every album to pretty much be like an 87 or 88 and up, and that's for the most part is barely going to happen. I think we get really close to a 90, but we don't hit a 90. But yeah, pretty stacked year, undeniably stacked. 2000 with an 89.2. Lift Your Skinny Fists, Kid A, Since I Left You, Boris, Voodoo, Stankonia, White Pony, Mama's Gun, Deltron 3030, and Winning Strip. Literally, I recognize 9 out of the 10 of the albums here. I don't recognize the last one, but hey, not everyone has to recognize literally everything, you know? And I didn't even realize it, but we are literally at the top of the list. So, this isn't the last album. There's 2 more years that we have to go through, and it's a 2-way tie with an 89.8. First off, 1997. This one has OK Computer, Shiro, Sagi, End of Evangelion, the soundtrack, Homogenic. Yeah, pretty stacked year. I'm not too familiar with some of the albums here. Like, I know of them, I just haven't listened to them myself because I don't know what it is about older music. I just never feel tempted to give it a listen half the time. But yeah, tied with that at number 1, which used to be definitively number 1, but redoing this list, it was not definitive anymore. It was now a tie. You have 2001. 2001, the year that the Twin Towers fell. You got you got Björk's Vespertine, Microphones The Glow Part 2, System of a Down's Toxicity, the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack, Discovery, Jane Doe, Blackwater Park, Leaves Turn Inside You, Lateralus, and Is This It? Like, I'm pretty sure the reason why this is now tied is because the Evangelion soundtrack hit the 500 threshold, and Homogenic went up a score, I think. I think a couple of them went up like a score, so it dragged up like a few points. Because 1997 was in second place before, but now they're tied, and you know, it's fine. And yeah, so objectively speaking, 2001 and 1997 was objectively the best year for music. So no need for subjectivity. We have defined it, and now that we've done that, we can officially go look at what 2024 looks like, what objectively good music in 2024 looks like. Top album of the year so far, Magdalena Bay's Imaginal Disc. Yeah, pretty fucking fantastic album. I Laid Down My Life For You, pretty great album too. Not my favorite Peggy record. I'd have this just right above Veteran. As I went to get screenshots for this, it was already New Music Friday, so the number 3 was the Shoo Shoo record, but let's pretend that it doesn't exist. If Charlie XCX's Brat, fantastic record. The album that finally got me into Charlie's music. Not that her other stuff was like too experimental or weird. I just for some reason never felt the need to listen to her stuff, if that made sense. Then you got Pardal, Sky 100. This used to be the number 1 album of the year. When it first dropped, it had like a 92 out of 100 user score. And it slowly went down to like a 91, and then Fantano dropped his review, and it has kept falling. I was going to say climbed, and it has kept falling since. I think it's a fantastic record. I think it's a beautiful, moving record. Honestly, I almost cried so many times at this thing. If the production was on par with After the Magic, it would legitimately be album of the decade for me. It is absolutely mind-bending, magical, brilliant, beautiful. It's just that the production is a bit too rough around the edges and harsh. And that does drag it down a bit for me. You have Kamasi Washington, Fearless Movement, another record that was very much beloved and was the highest rated album of the year until Fantano dropped his middling review of. I think it's great. I haven't really felt the need to come back to it all too much, but it was pretty great the 2 times that I've listened to it. Not even going to count this one because it has 100 reviews. Tribeca Scrapyard. I would say I Didn't Mean to Haunt You and this are pretty much on par. I love I Didn't Mean to Haunt You a bit more, as I feel like its songwriting and presentation is better, but Scrapyard's engineering and sound design and mixes are way cleaner and clearer and overall more colorful, and plus there's a lot more bops on this than there is on I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. Like, you put that album on to cry, you put this one on to have a good time and then also cry. Bright Future, I've never really been too big on this record. Like, I thought it was okay at the time I listened to it, but like, it's just fine. I don't know, it's whatever, it's okay, it's cool. You have Sam LRC, A Lonely Sinner, pretty great meditative little post black metal album. I listened to it a couple times. First time was absolutely blown away by it. Second time, not as much, but it's still a great record that's likely going to make my year-end list anyway. Knocked Loose, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To. This also was fairly high on the list. Fairly high in the rankings earlier in the year. But, you know, stuff falls over time, and pretty much, as you can see, many albums this year are struggling to go past like the 83, 84 mark. So I think that was just going to happen at some point anyway. And then the 10th spot, Beth Gibbons, Lives Outgrown. Yeah, pretty beautiful record. Not my favorite of the year, but definitely needs mention. And after doing the math and averaging it out, it averages out to being an 84.4, and they'll put it just above last year. Just above last year. Which isn't great considering they had 2 massive records that year, but hey, who knows? Maybe music is getting worse. I don't think it is, but who cares? And yeah, that was pretty much the rankings of every year up until now. Old music, it tends to be revered more because new shit can never be as good as the old shit. So yeah, thanks for watching. Currently working on the Big Day video. I have it done. I just have to record it. And as you can hear, I am very clearly fucking sick. So that hasn't been happening. I started recording the first paragraph, put a video of Patreon up of me starting to work on the fucking thing. And then I got sick, and I've been sick for the last like 2 fucking weeks, because that's what happens when I get sick. Because I rarely get sick. I fucking rarely get sick. But when I do, I'm literally incapacitated and cannot do shit for like a month. So thanks for watching. Subscribe. Bye.